Hello everyone, I am the storyteller and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now, get comfortable and relax. The Cursed Room, Whispers of the Vengeful Dead. Please help me. Please help me. A continuous sound was coming from a locked room with two doors while I was playing with my sibling in my grandpa's villa. It was the 13th of June, a seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning, but this day was special. My summer holidays had just begun. I was thrilled because we were traveling to my grandpa's newly purchased villa near the seashore. My parents had booked a flight, and as soon as I returned from school, we packed our bags. After our evening meal, we headed to the airport. A 3-hour flight later, we finally arrived at our destination. All we needed now was the time to settle in, get our shit together, and sleep the night away. Grandpa welcomed us at the airport and drove us to the villa. It had an old, authentic charm, but something about it felt off. The moment I stood at the entrance, an eerie feeling crept over me. My gut told me something was wrong, but I brushed it aside and went in to greet my cousins, who had arrived earlier with their family. After a hearty dinner, we decided to explore the villa while our parents enjoyed tea in the garden. Grandpa told us that the villa was over 100 years old and had recently been acquired at an auction. Excited, my cousins and I planned to explore from the top floor down to the ground floor before joining the adults in the backyard. As we roamed through the house, we discovered old artifacts, an antique telephone, a rocking chair, and ornate furniture. Everything felt frozen in time. Eventually, we reached the ground floor and stumbled upon a peculiar room with two doors. One was made of glass fiber, allowing us to see the second wooden door behind it. Something about this setup intrigued me. Was there a third door beyond the wooden one? The thought sent a thrill down my spine. Just as I was about to touch the door, a blood-curdling scream echoed behind me. "Stop! Stop!" A frantic voice called out. It was the caretaker, his face pale with terror. He had come to speak with Grandpa, but upon seeing us near the room, he panicked. My cousin quickly called our parents and Grandpa. Once they arrived, the caretaker begged us to step away and listen carefully. He took a deep breath and began his chilling tale. 100 years ago, a newlywed couple moved into this villa. At that time, it was one of the most luxurious properties along the seashore. For a while, life was perfect for them. But one fateful night, a group of local gangsters broke in to rob them. The couple had been enjoying tea on the rooftop when they heard the loud crash of their front door being smashed open. Rushing downstairs, they found themselves face to face with ruthless criminals. Before the husband could react, a gangster struck his head with a hammer, rendering him unconscious. His wife screamed as they looted their valuables, but amidst the chaos, the husband regained consciousness. Weak and bleeding, he dragged his wife to the music room, the very room with the two doors. He locked her inside and told her not to open the door, no matter what. Just as he tried to escape to get help, a gangster spotted him. A gunshot rang out. He collapsed, gasping for breath, but before dying, he vowed, "I will kill everyone who dares to live in this house." The gangsters laughed, throwing his lifeless body into a trunk and dumping it in the basement. With their leader dead, the gangsters resumed looting, unaware of what was about to unfold. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently. A chilling wind howled through the villa. One of the gangsters, who believed in spirits, cowered in fear, whispering prayers. The leader dismissed it as a voltage fluctuation, but then, a deafening scream erupted from the basement. When they rushed down, they found one of their men dead, his body mutilated, impaled with a knife. The air grew ice cold. As they looked around in horror, the trunk that held the husband's body began to tremble violently. Then, two hands, skeletal, decayed, burst through the wood. Terror-stricken, the gangsters opened fire, but the bullets did nothing. One by one, they were slaughtered in gruesome ways. Hammer blows crushing skulls, invisible forces choking them. The leader, now the last one standing, came face to face with the vengeful spirit. The ghost let out a terrifying laugh before possessing his body. The only surviving gangster had hidden under the bed, watching in horror. He saw the possessed leader walk toward the two-doored room. Knocking gently on the wooden door, he spoke in the husband's voice. "Open the door, my love." The terrified wife, recognizing the voice, unlocked the door, but the moment she saw her husband's bloodied, possessed form, she screamed in horror. What? The remaining gangster seized his chance. He grabbed a holy thread from his wrist and wrapped it around the door handle, chanting prayers. As the possessed leader lunged toward him, he shoved the wife's lifeless body outside, slammed the door shut, and bolted out of the villa. The locals believe that to this day, the vengeful spirit remains locked inside those doors, filled with unrelenting rage. No one knows what will happen if the doors are ever opened again. Hearing this, my blood ran cold. I turned to look at the door once more, and for a brief second, I thought I saw it move. It's always watching. The first time I saw it, I thought it was just my imagination, a trick of the light maybe. It was late, well past midnight, and I was sitting in the living room, binge-watching something forgettable to distract myself from the restless night. I swear, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something, a head, peeking at me from behind the armchair. Just a glimpse. My heart stuttered, and I whipped my head around, eyes wide and searching. I spoke nothing. I laughed nervously, a brittle sound in the empty house. "I'm just tired," I told myself, before turning the TV off, suddenly feeling the walls closing in on me. I went to bed that night with the hallway light on, something I hadn't done since I was a kid. But it didn't stop there. The next night I saw it again. This time it was at the edge of the hallway, peering around the corner into the kitchen where I was getting a glass of water. It was just a shadow, a head-shaped silhouette that disappeared the second I turned to face it. The darkness in the hallway seemed thicker, heavier, like the air was filled with tar. I felt it then. The watching. After that, the glimpses became more frequent. I would see it from behind the couch, in the bathroom mirror, through the living room window when I forgot to draw the curtains. Every time, the same. A head peeking at me, dark and formless, just barely within my peripheral vision. The second I turned to face it, gone. When I switched on lights, it vanished even quicker, like it couldn't stand the illumination. I tried to convince myself I was losing my mind. I even went to the doctor, who muttered something about stress and lack of sleep. I started leaving every light in the house on at night, but the feeling of being watched only intensified. It got to the point where I refused to look around corners. I would hold my breath when I passed by a window at night, afraid I'd see that shadowy head staring back at me from the darkness outside. My own home became a trap, a place of fear where every shadow felt alive. Then came that night I woke up suddenly, my heart pounding, the room heavy with silence. There was no sound, just an unnatural stillness that pressed against my eardrums. I didn't know why I woke up until I felt it, a presence. The unmistakable feeling of eyes on me. I froze, afraid to look. But something inside me, some awful, morbid curiosity, made me glance toward the foot of the bed. And there I saw it. The silhouette of a head, perfectly still, peeking just over the edge of the bed frame. My breath hitched, my chest tight. I fumbled with the bedside lamp, my hand shaking so violently I almost knocked it over. I switched it on, expecting it to vanish like it always did. But this time, it didn't. The head remained. It was no longer just a shadow, no longer a trick of the light. Now, in the dim glow of the lamp, I could see it clearly. And I wish I hadn't. It was a human head, but wrong. Its skin was stretched too tightly, smooth and pale, as though it had been molded from wax. The eyes were wide open, milky white and bulging, unblinking, as they stared straight at me. The mouth was a thin, lipless line upturned in a smile that looked carved, not natural. It didn't move, it didn't blink. It just stared. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt sealed shut as I stared back. Paralyzed, I wanted to scream, to move, to do something, but I couldn't. All I could do was sit there trembling while that grotesque head watched me. And then, slowly, it began to rise. The head lifted, inch by inch, revealing more of itself. Its neck was long and thin, like a stretched-out rope. Its body, if you could call it that, was thin and emaciated, the bones pushing against its pale, waxy skin. As it unfolded, it kept that awful smile and those unblinking eyes fixed on me. Then, it climbed onto the bed. I shut my eyes. "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real," I repeated to myself. I remember what happened after that. I think my mind snapped because I suddenly passed out, like my brain just shut itself off to protect me. When I woke up, it was morning. The lamp was still on, flickering weakly, and I was lying in the middle of the bed, the sheet soaked with sweat. I sat up, my body aching, my head pounding. I wanted to believe it was just a nightmare, a vivid, horrifying dream. But as I stumbled to the bathroom, dread settled in my chest like a lead weight. That's when I saw it. In the mirror, I noticed a thick, black substance, glistening and oily, seeping from my left nostril. It moved sluggishly, like it was alive, and the sight of it sent a shiver of revulsion down my spine. I grabbed a handful of tissue and stuffed it against my nose, desperate to stop the flow. The smell was putrid, like rotting meat and burnt oil. My breath hitched as panic clawed at me. I didn't dare look at the mirror again, fearing I would see it. Instead, I turned and ran, barefoot and trembling, out of the house, leaving the front door swinging wide behind me. I haven't returned home since then. I've been staying in motels, sometimes friends' houses, though I don't tell them why. I can't tell them, because the truth is, it followed me. Everywhere I go, I still see it peeking, from around buildings, behind trees, even from the mirrors in public restrooms. Always watching, I don't sleep much anymore. The second I close my eyes, I feel it. Its gaze burrowing into me like icy needles. The last time I did manage to catch a few hours of sleep, I woke up paralyzed. It was in the corner of the room, halfway in the wall, grinning. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, but I couldn't scream. I swear it whispered something, too low for me to understand, but I know it said my name. At the last motel I stayed at, I locked myself in the bathroom. I couldn't stand the feeling of being watched anymore. My reflection stared back at me from the cracked mirror, haggard and hollow. Then, its eyes shifted. Not mine. Its. It was there, in the reflection, its face, directly behind me, warped and stretched like wet paper, grinning too wide. My own mouth began to move, but I wasn't speaking. "You can't run," it said in my voice. "I'm already inside." I smashed the mirror, but it didn't matter. The moment the shards hit the ground, every single fragment showed it watching me from 1,000 angles. I left that place, sprinting into the cold night air, but there's nowhere for me to go now. I've stopped trying to hide at this point. It doesn't matter where I am, it's always with me, and now I can feel it inside my head, waiting, whispering. Soon I'll close my eyes, and its face will be all I see. I don't think I'll be me much longer, but at least then I can finally stop running and